Again, okay, so we're turning our attention here back to the split screen. On the right side of your picture, these women's pairs look like they're getting ready to go. And there we go. Our first strokes are off in this grand final for the women's pairs.
Oh, and we're back to steering again.
Yes. So I was going to mention, remembering back to our preliminary race yesterday, there were some pretty serious steering issues in some of these boats. So hopefully they had some discussions about that. But as you can see, we have our marshal with his or her flag out immediately.
Yep.
Just ready to offer some corrections to this boat from Deauville. They're in lane 2.
And again, he's just helping them try to give them indication, stay in their lane. It's not a matter of interference with any other boat out there. But he's still got his flag down. He's not flagging them over his head, but flag off to the side like that might mean he still wants them to move a little bit more.
Yeah, and as we've talked about kind of throughout the regatta, these straight boats with the tow steering, the rudder that's attached to a cable and one athlete's foot, it is very, very tricky, and it is a very complicated skill to learn how to make the small enough adjustments to make those accurate steering points work for you when you're doing something like a 2K.
So when you're steering with that, you're driving your legs down just like a leg press on a leg press machine, but you're also having to rotate your foot left or right to adjust for the steering in there. So that's a difficult thing to do. And you mentioned how it takes a coordination effort. It takes some adjustment in the rigging. It takes some practice in the boat to learn how to do that and not overcorrect.
And of course, we don't have firsthand knowledge of how all of these boats are rigged. It is possible that some of these boats do not have tow steering, and that these athletes are only steering with pressure, meaning that one athlete, the starboard or the port, would either pull harder or a little bit lighter on a given stroke to help correct the boat's course.
And they would also talk to each other. Those two people in the boat, they can be speaking with each other, like port, they would call port, or starboard. If they need to correct with their pressure, sometimes you have to do both. You have to correct the pressure of the oars as well as the rudder.
Yeah, these Georgia Tech athletes over on the left side of your picture playing with fire there, putting that port blade in the buoy line. As we've talked about, these little boats are very easy to capsize if you catch your oar either in the water or on this fixed buoy line. And now we see them just entering the starboard buoy line there. And of course, these athletes will know, having spent some time in this boat, that once your oar gets pretty close to those buoys, you are running the risk of actually going into the river. So
I'm looking at that Rollins crew. I hope they cleared that the divider buoy there under the bridge, but their blades are heading right for that. And there you go.
There you go, that little bit bigger buoy.
Yep.
Yeah, so again, we just want to emphasize that the steering in these boats is not an easy thing. These athletes are absolutely giving everything that they can to make sure that they are having the best possible course, but it is a trick, and it is a very high-level skill for these athletes to develop to get down the race course safely and in a straight line.
So we just watched Tulane across what appeared to be a little bit too strong of a turn, but that just coming out of the turn looked like they're making a little bit of correction back, but that was kind of a drastic move. It seemed like, unless they overshot that turn and had to make a strong move to get back in their lane again.
Yep.
And you get in the flags there.
Yep.
Again, steering is so important here because you go 1 meter off to one side, then you recorrect. You're just adding distance every time, and if you do that, a dozen times down the course, you're putting a boat length or more extra distance for your race.
So here's a nice picture of this Rollins crew just making their way through this second 500 now. The crew made up of Alyssa Murphy in the stroke seat and Britta Brown in the bow seat. Britta being in the left side of your picture there in the front of the boat, the back of the boat to the rows, front of the boat to us.
36 strokes a minute for Rollins.
And that's a nice, smooth stroke rate in a pair. 36 is a nice way to cruise.
And they
just keeping the boat running.
They're looking like they're feeling pretty confident. But look at lane number 3, Tulane right next to them. That looked like they had a little bit of a hard turn back there. But if they did that, it looks like they've corrected that issue. So Tulane pushing Rollins right alongside of them.
Yeah, this is going to be a great race for these two crews, the Rollins crews and the Tulane crew of Emma Kozowski and Melanie McAdoo, really duking it out here in these middle lanes to see who's going to take the gold today.
Yeah. And again, that's the important thing is who's going to take the gold here. So again, every stroke counts out here. Every release of the blades, every steering counts because it can come down to the width of that bow ball and those photo finishes we love to see.
Yes, you do love these photo finishes. And there we go. We can see a nice picture here of the Deauville crew, maybe again having a little bit of an adventure with their steering, just moving toward that 2-lane crew. You can see kind of on the right side, just they're moving toward that official launch. The official launch might actually have to get out of the way there for the Deauville crew. But I do think it is still the Rollins crew and our crew from 2-lane that are out in front here, leading the way in this grand final of the women's pair.
Well, we saw we saw Rollins running 36 strokes a minute. Again, I'd like to see what our first competitor is with that, whether they're in front or behind. We'll see what 2-lane's running here. And they're a little bit lower, 34.5. I'll have to see if Rollins has settled down a little bit more. That 36 looked very good for them early on. And yes, they're still sitting right there at 36 strokes a minute.
Yeah, so looking at this field, again, we have only 5 boats in this race, and we're looking for 3 medalists, of course. It does look like there are 3 boats that have separated themselves of the 5. It is going to be Rollins and 2-lane and this crew from Deauville, sort of exploring the course there as they come through the middle of the race. But it does look like possibly that Georgia Tech crew and the crew from Lafayette are maybe out of medal contention at this stage in the race.
Well, being a 5-boat race, you're seeing all 5 of them right there. So you're right. Your leaders are going to be that 2-lane and the Rollins crew, and then trailing right behind the Deauville boat.
Yeah, and as this 2-lane crew is coming closer to the camera, it does look like they do have the advantage over the Rollins crew. We can see them approaching the island now, which is about 400 meters to go. So they're coming inside this last 500 meters, which means it's go time.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to start going through the gears here and bringing the rates up for a sprint. In particular, if you're in that 2-lane boat, you're going to want to extend that lead over this Rollins crew to make sure that you are clearly in that first place position.
Well, 2-lane definitely with a little bit of open water here on Rollins. Rollins trying to bring the rating up, but they also looks like they're shortening just slightly in order to get that rating to move up.
And as you can see on the right of your picture, we have the Deauville crew that did start over on the right side of the course, has made their way all the way over to the left side of the course. They are still in that 3rd place position, but they have moved over several lanes to starboard at this point. But really good finish here coming from these top 2 crews. We can see the 2-lane crew coming by the box now, and they have opened up open water over Rollins.
Yep, half a length to a full length. They might even get that full length by the end, but they are just throwing the shots out there. See, oh gosh,
little bobble there.
Almost. Now, and what is it now? Adrenaline's going to recover them.
That's right.
Oh gosh.
But they did a good job just to make sure that they were stabilized and just get back together on the same page after that little incident. The 2-lane boat's still in the lead here.
That is so frightening when that happens at that close, and you're in the contention for the gold. Like, no, can't do that.
And it looks like our 2-lane boat is over the line. Your crew of Emma Kozowski and Melanie McAdoo coming away with a 1st place finish
Gold
unofficially.
And the Immoral Bowl.
Yeah. And a good 2nd place effort from our crew from Rollins.